Close the doors of your mind, close the gates of your mind, close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your ohel, your tent, your mishkan, your mikdash, your Hayikal, the body that you dwell inside, where your sentient body lives, where you live inside, the temple of Yahuwah, the body of Yahuwah, the tent that he gave you to live inside, that you may put it off in the end of your life. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day of warning. Today is a day that Yahuwah has given to us as another shabath, that we may cease from our labors, our works, our own selfish self, and our own selfish ambitions and our own plans, that he may bring us to an understanding of who he is as the one who sits in the highest Shemaim above all Allahims and all gods, both male and female, God and goddesses. For Yahuwah Allahim made all things. For today we acknowledge the one who made all the har of the earth, all the rivers and streams, all the har and the nahar that flows on the top of the earth, under the earth, and the waters that flow from his throne, the shimmering light that allows you to understand and be illuminated within your inner man and your inner being and your understanding in your mind. So as we move forward in this 364-day cycle, according to the celestial circles, according to the cycles of 182 thrones, as we move toward the longest day, he said we pick up our heart and our mind, and we pick up our thoughts in our mind, and we bring them to the obedience of Yahushua Mashiach. Because to walk in the steps of Yahushua Mashiach is to walk in the steps of the light, the or, the very debar that was created all things that you see. So as we move forward in that truth, knowing that all things work together for him, for his kabod, Yahuwah Allahim, and not for our own self. Right, so this is the book of Ezekiel, Yakazal, chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 39, Yakazal chapter 39, and verse 1. Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse 1. And it says, and you, son of Adam, Naba against Gog, say, thus says Yahuwah, Allahim, behold, I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Why? Because Yahuwah has anytime somebody touches Yahuwah's people, in any form or fashion, or any type, even if he sends you to punish him, he's only doing that so he can get you in the end. It says, and I will turn you about and drive you forward and bring you up from the uttermost parts of the north and lead you against the mountains of Yasharal. Why? Because these are all a part of your own sins that you commit. Because anything you have, like whether a household, or whether anything that you own or anything you have, if everybody's not walking in the trueness and obedience of Yahuwah, he sends enemies after you to take everything from you, and it's going to be other people. It's going to be other nations. It's going to be people that don't look like you. Then I will strike your bow from your left hand, and I will make your arrows drop out of your right hand. He said, I'm going to strike you in your left and your right hand. And you shall fall on the mountains of Yasharal, and you and all your hordes and the people who are with you. And I will give you to the birds of prey and every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. And you shall fall in the open field, for I have spoken, declares Yahuwah Elohim, and I will send fire on Magog, and on those who dwell securely in the coastlands. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Why? Because Gog and Magog has went throughout the earth, and as a matter of fact, Gog and Magog has conquered a lot of places. Matter of fact, they love to dwell by the coastlands too. They got all the property by the coastlands. Matter of fact, you drive by them every single day, and you be like, why Gog and Magog got all your stuff? It's because of your own behavior. It has nothing to do with nothing else. And I will send fire on Magog and on those who dwell securely on the coastlands, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. In my Qahalath name, that's the whole point. That's how Yahuwah get a name. You say, how do you get a name? How did Yahushua get a name? You got a name through violence. Yahuwah had to destroy things for you to get a name. How do you think you even got to this point in your life? How do you think all these lands and places got conquered for you to even have an opportunity at salvation? A lot of people had to die. Even Yahushua himself had to die. A lot of people had to go through certain things for you to even get to this point to where you even can get to this understanding. And those who reject it, it's like you're rejecting every single person. They all died in vain for you to reject all this that happened, for you to reject the bar up until this point. It's like they all died in vain. And it says, and they shall know that I'm Yahuwah. In my Qahalath name, I will make known in the midst of my people, Yasharal. And he said, while all that's going on, you know what people say? They don't want you to know the name. That's why they change it. That's why people come with a different name every week. Even though it's the name right there in the Abri Lashon, right there in the book, in the Torah, it's right there. You can see it. You can go to the original language, you can see it. And you know what they say? It's a different name. It don't sound like that. They make a name up every week. And I will not let my Qahalath name be profaned anymore. See, this is how Yahuwah stops people from profaning his name. He starts destroying things. He starts messing things up. Because when you start to operate outside his Torah, then guess what? He has to do some things. And the nation shall know that I am Yahuwah, the Qahalath one of Yashar, the Qahalath one in Yasharal. Behold, it is coming. And it will be brought about, declares Yahuwah Elohim. That is the day which I have spoken. He said it's going to be brought about. He said the day that Yahuwah has spoken it, he said it's going to happen. This is Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 45. Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 5. Yeshayahu chapter 45 and verse 5. Yeshayahu chapter 45 and verse 5. He says, I am Yahuwah, and there is none other. Right? So when Yahuwah said his name, he said there is no other Elohim. Besides me, there is no Elohim. So don't put nothing next to the ark in your Arun, in your chest, with the Kopharoth on top, with another Elohim next to it. He's going to fall on his face and they're going to break off his legs like Dagon. Don't put another Elohim, another name next to it. Because if you do, you're going to find yourself in a serious situation. You might get sicknesses, pestilence. You can get disease in your body. Because it's going to activate inside of you once you put that idol inside of you. Once you put that idol inside of you, your whole body going to activate to sickness. That's why people get brain fog. Because you got another God inside of you. That's why people get Alzheimer's. Because you got another Elohim inside of you. That's why all these things, your countenance is abated. Your mind, your vigor, your eyesight. You got to get them gods out of your heart and your mind. This is all a part of it. People don't know that, but that's all a part. He said, I'll put none of the diseases that I put on Mizraim on you if you keep the bar. But guess what? He said, I like holiness in some things, and that's the reason why. I am Yahuwah, and there is no other. Besides me, there is no Elohim. I equipped you, though you do not know me. He said, you don't know me fully. Why he said that? That people may know that from the rising of the sun, so as the sun, the Shamash comes out of the portal, as it will be in the third portal, we're in the first portal. Right, as the sun rises out of the portal and from the west, it says, and from the west, there is none beside me. He's just like the sun, but guess what? He's greater than the sun. I am Yahuwah, and there is no other. I formed the light, I formed Or, and create Chdsh. I did all of that. I make well-being, so you think that everything that you do with your eating habits and everything that you created for yourself, your patterns and what's good for your body, you think you made well-being for yourself? I made well-being and create calamity. So anytime you have calamity, you say, Yahuwah doing it. What? When things get taken away, Yahuwah doing it. Why he doing it? I created it. I am Yahuwah who does all these things, so don't blame it on nobody else. You can't even blame Yahuwah. You be like, Yahuwah, true and righteous are your judgments. You can't blame it on nobody else. So that's the reason why people don't want to come to Yahuwah. Why? Because he's literally telling you that I'm doing it to you, and you can't say nothing back to me. You can't even utter a word. Matter of fact, you can't even say anything back, because if you do, then I'm going to do something else to you. Verse 8 says, shower, O Shamayim, from above, and let the clouds rain down righteousness, right? So that's what you need. Anytime we talked about the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night, your manure by day and your cloud by day, anytime you speak the bar, not to speak these words in Deuteronomy chapter 6, while you sit in the house, walk by the way, and lie down, you rise up, it should only rain down righteousness out of your mouth. You know, I talk about when Mimari went in Musha's face, he said, had her father spit in her face in the Aramaic terms, but it really meant rebuke her with the debar. As rain and snow come from Shamayim, so the debar be that goes out of her mouth. You should have spit in her face with the rain and washed her by continual washing under the bar, and she would have never gotten Mashah's face the way she did. He said, so why would he want to do that? So you won't get plagued. But that's what happens. She got plagued because nobody corrected her. Nobody taught her properly. Had her father rebuked her, then she would have never got plagued for 7 days. But these are all a part of it. Shower, O Shamayim, from above, and let the clouds rain down righteousness. Let the earth open, that salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. Righteousness may bear fruit. So you want to know why nobody's bearing fruit in your household? You want to know why nobody's bearing fruit in their heart and their mind? It's because of what you're speaking out of your mouth. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. If you're satisfying yourself with gossip, slander, hatred, jealousy, envy, strife, complaining, pride, all these things are satisfying your inner man and your inner being and the shadim that dwell on the inside of you. You're not going to bear any fruit. I say pari, just like it was in the beginning on the 3rd day, and what he commanded Adam on the 6th day. You're not going to be able to do the things that you need to do according to your enlightened being, because you're a higher level enlightened being on the inside, which that enlightened being needs to be free from all demons, and all their wars need to be won in order for them to have shalom on the inside of your body. That's the only way. You have to speak righteousness, sadiq, sadaqah. Every single word that comes out of your mouth has to be sadiq, sadaqah, whether it's internally or externally, in order for good to come to you. That's the only way. Let the earth open, that salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. That's the only way. Why do you think the earth, your body is like the earth? This is like a feminine nature. We talk about the feminine nature needs the word, the bar. It's just like a seed being planted. When the rain comes down, it absorbs into the earth, and then the earth needs to actually need that to bear fruit. You're not going to grow any cucumbers if there ain't no rain. I promise you. You ain't going to grow nothing. No seed going to sprout up if it ain't no rain. Nothing's going to sprout in your heart and your mind if it ain't no rain and no shaleg. Nothing's going to dilute all of the chemicals in your soil if it ain't no rain. You need it. And these are the totality of who you are. Let the earth open, and salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. And when do you bear fruit? When do fruit bear? In the summertime. Going toward the longest day. You need to understand that on the 7 celestial circles, on the 182 thrones, you know, the things that Hanuk taught. Because you know the other one, what they taught. You know, the Shamash rule by day. What grow? They rule by night. But in order for things to grow at nighttime, during the daytime, the rain had to have fallen, right? Or even at night, the rain falls. But at the same time, nothing really reaches up until the sun come up. Until the Shamash come, ain't nothing growing. You be like, man, where the sun at? If the sun ain't coming, you ain't growing. You can rain all you want, but if that Shamash don't come up, ain't nothing coming up. You may get a seedling, but ain't enough to eat nothing. You just gonna see a little, but that's it. Ain't nothing gonna bear no fruit until that sun gets to this highest point. Then they be like, we need to bear some fruit. And that's another reason why the father need to be at the highest point. Why the father got to be at the highest point? So everything underneath can bear fruit? Why do you think the Ab got to be at the highest point? That's a whole nother subject. Let the earth cause them both to sprout. Let the earth cause them both to sprout. Righteousness may bear fruit. Salvation and righteousness. The only way salvation and righteousness can bear fruit, rain and snow, and then it springs up in the earth, just like plants grow. Yahuwah have created it, because he do everything. He did it all. He said, I created it. I only created it for righteousness and salvation. Why do you think it says in Revelations, he said, Barak Ardeh, to keep the commandments and hold the testimony of Yahushua Mashiach. Salvation and righteousness. Because it would be our righteousness if we keep his commandments. Why? Because all that's a part, and Yahuwah created it. And he not changing it. Regardless of, I don't care if anybody tries to mishandle it and mischange the words. Verse 9 says, woe to him who strives with him who formed him. See, this is the thing you don't want to do. You know he got to keep the commandments. You know you got to keep the testimony of Yahushua Mashiach. But then you want to come back and start striving with the person who created it and made it that way in order for human beings and Adam to get back and get salvation again. So you're going to strive with the person. And guess what? A pot among earthen pots. He said, oh, that's all you are. Does the clay say to him who forms it, what are you making? So why are you talking back to the person that you are? What is he making? Or your work has no handles? Woe to him who says to a father, now I talked about how the father need to be higher, just like in Genesis chapter 37. He says, so I, which is the sun, your mother, which is the yard, and your brothers, which are the stars, bow down and worship you. Because the father needs to be at his highest point. The strength of the house. What are you begetting? Or to a woman, what are you in labor? Because that's what a woman is. A woman is like the feminine earth. Just like he sent his teachings in the earth in Bereshit chapter 1. He sent his teachings, the commandment is lamp, and the teaching is light or. And he's coming to bring light to the earth and allow it to bear righteousness and salvation. The very same thing. These are all a part of the speaking ruach that he allows man in the Aramaic Targums in Genesis chapter 2. When he says, I gave a speaking ruach to give hearing to the ears and sight to the eyes. Iron. Because we didn't take beliefs by pen and ink. Penuel brought that type of teaching because he can alter things. The same way the artificial intelligence can alter things. But here we go. Let's get out of that. Woe to him who says to the father, what are you begetting? And to the woman, with what are you in labor? Because you need to understand a mother and a father. This is why they dismantle homes. This is why Satan, Shaitan, brings homes to fighting. This is why he creates it all. It's not rocket science. Thus says Yahuwah, the Kudash one Yashral, and the one who formed him. Ask me of the things to come. Will you command me concerning my children? Uh-oh. So you're going to try to tell me what to do with my children. And the work of my hands, I made them that way. I formed them that way. I made them that way, so why are you trying to convince them to stop? I made the earth and created Adam on it. It was my hands that stretched out the Shamayim. So you're trying to change what I made in the beginning. I made it Bereshit 1, the first 6 days, and the 7th day. This is the 7th Shabbat on the 364-day cycle, moving towards what? Called Shabuah. But the first 6 days and the 7th day he rested. This is the 7th Shabbat. Right, let me get out of here. And I commanded all their hosts. He did all that. I stirred him up in righteousness. That's what makes Adam rise. He stirred him up with Sadiq Sadaqah. And I will make all his ways level with righteousness and salvation. That's male and female. It's a Karnakabah. So if you don't understand this, and I will make all his ways level, and he shall build my city. That's why we talked about last week. He said, I've chosen you to build a Kudash temple and set my exiles free. Who was that? He put Adam in the earth. He created Adam in the earth. He stretched out the Shamayims and commanded all their hosts and stirred them up in righteousness. How do you think Yahushua got from the grave? And he came to set all the exiles free. Everybody that was bound, he said, I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. He said, I come to declare what? Set the captives free. I come to set you free from who you used to be. And guess what? Not for price or reward, says Yahuwah of hosts. Why? Because they thought that 30 pieces of silver was going to actually be the one that's going to redeem them. But in actuality, it was. But he said, but it wasn't for a price, though. Or reward. What was it for? Says Yahuwah of hosts. Thus says Yahuwah, the wealth of Mizraim and the merchants of Cush and the savings and the men of stature shall come over you and be yours, and they shall follow you. How that's going to happen? Until righteousness and salvation spring up in the earth. Until the Ruach Kodash is in all the earth. Because the Ruach Kodash got to be in all the earth in order for that to happen. Everybody gonna keep transgressing the Torah until the Ruach is in the whole earth, like it was in the Bereshit chapter 1, when he created all things. They shall follow you, and they shall come over in chains and bow down to you. Now you say, well, at the name of Yahushua, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Yahushua Mashiach is master. Why? Because the Ruach is in the earth now. Salvation has springed up, and righteousness. But that's the only way, though. They will plead with you, saying, surely Elohim is in you. Huh? He said, surely Elohim is in you, and there is no other Elohim besides him. He said there is no other Elohim besides him, and I'm sure he's in you. Right, so this is the book of Zechariah, chapter 8. Zechariah chapter 8 and verse 22. Zechariah 8 and 22. And it says, many people, strong nations shall come and seek Yahuwah of hosts in Jerusalem, and shall entreat the favor of Yahuwah. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, in those days 10 men from the nations of every tongue shall take hold of the robe of a Yehudi, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that Yahuwah is with you. Right? What do you mean by that? Because everything happens for a reason. Because even Yahushua himself, he says, even the man came to him, he said, no man can do these miracles except Yahuwah be with you, Yahushua Mashiach. Who do you think they were going to take hold of the skirt? Why do you think Saul grabbed the skirt of Shemuel? Why do you think the woman grabbed the hem of the fringe of Yahushua Mashiach? Your Amunah has made you well, right? But these are all a part of it. Well, we just started there, right? This is the 14th day going inside. This is the 14th day of the 3rd month, right? This is the 7th Shabbat of the 364-day cycle. Moving towards Chag Shabuah, which when the sun goes down. But then you look at all these transitions going toward the longest day. Right? You say night, longest night, and the longest day. And one has to be able to discern between good and evil, between the longest day and the longest night. And you're going to have to understand it on that level. And these are all a part of this understanding. Right? So this is it's 49 days since Bakur waving the sheaf, the Omer, on the 50-day count toward the 50th day. There are 0 days left. Why? When the sun goes down, it's the 50th day. It's 49 days since waving the sheaf. It's the 49th day. And you see how fast that went by? Niggas are 13. It was 9 days since Yahushua was taken in a cloud after 40 days appearing with many proofs, right? For 40 days after waving the sheaf, right? It was 9 days ago, right? What happens after 9 months for a woman having a child? How does we just read in Yeshayahu 40:45. We talked about how the earth springs forth salvation and righteousness. When does that happen? After 9 months. Notice how he got 9 days ago when Yahushua was taken. He did it that quick. Because the Amunah is quick and powerful. It ain't long dragged out. But it says, appearing with many proofs for 40 days after waving the sheaf, and 49 days since rising from the grave on the 17th day of the 1st month of Chagmah, right? Not Chag, but Chagmah. But all that's a part of it. All that's a part of it, right? This is the 7th Shabbat of the count. So this is the 7th Shabbat. For in 6 days Yahuwah made the Shamayim in the earth, and the 7th day he rested. Knowing this is all a part of the transitions of time, right? Right. This is the wisdom of Solomon, or book of wisdom, chapter 7, 1 through 15. I myself am a mortal man like to all, just like you. We just read that in the beginning. I formed Adam in the beginning. We read in Yeshayahu 45. And the offspring of him that was first made of the earth. He said, Shalom was saying this. I was doing that too. And in my mother's womb was fashioned to the flesh in the time of 10 months. And now they say 10 months. Why? Because you after 9 months, what happens? A child is going to be born. Right? Because that's usually what happens. After 9 months, after what? After teat, male and female, after mud and clay. When was Adam created? He was made out of mud and clay. That's what teat means in the alphabet. That's the 9th letter of the alphabet. And then what happens after that? It says, fashioned to be in the flesh in the time of 10 months, being compacted in blood, because that's what happens when Adam was made from the Adama, from the blood that he was made from, the red soil, the red clay. And then he came out. He said after 9 months, it's like a child being born. And then you get to the 10th letter of the alphabet with his open right hand, the yod. He put his hand out. How does a child get born? They put their hand in and they grab the child out. you grab the child with your hand. Being compacted in blood of the seed of man and the pleasure that came with sleep. What's that? Right? People say, what is that? That's what they call, of course you know what that is. It's a pleasure that comes with sleep. That's how it's made. What happens when you dream? Tardema. What happens to that? How did Akua get made? It was a pleasure that came with sleep. How did she get made? It was a pleasure that came with sleep in Genesis chapter 3. And it says, and I was nursed in swaddling clothes, and that with cares. For there is no king that had any other beginning of birth. Why? Because that when Yahushua was born, he said he was born from a Bethula, a virgin. And he said he had a specific time that he was born. Behold, a virgin of Bethula going to be with child. But guess what? For all men have one entrance into life and the going out. So everybody goes in naked, comes in the world naked, and they go out naked. Just like a birth being born. Like I'm being born into the world and I'm going out the same way. I'm being born out of the world the same way I came into the world. I came in with nothing, I'm leaving with nothing. So please don't be thinking I'm carrying all this stuff with me. It's not going with me. I got to leave it to somebody else, and then they got to have to say the same testimony. Naked I came in, and naked I'm going to leave. My father left me something to do, but I can't take nothing he left me with. The only thing I can take is the things that I did with it. The good works or the works that I did. Everything else, the evil stuff, he's like, okay, you're going to be judged for that. But all the other stuff, I took the good works with me too. But that's all it is. And guess what? Wherefore I prayed, and understanding was given to me. So he prayed, and I called upon Yahuwah Elohim, and the Ruach of Chakmah came to me, the Ruach of wisdom. I preferred her, so what do you prefer? Before scepters and thrones. So before one even said, you know how people say, right, going to book of, right, so this is the book, see this is the part that people did not do. This is what people did not do. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 3, or chapter 13, Avery chapter 13 and verse 13. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 13. Therefore, let us go to him outside the camp and bear the reproach he endured, right? For we have no lasting city, but we seek a city that is to come. Through him, let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to Elohim, that is the fruit of lips, right? And acknowledge his shun. Acknowledge his shun. Do not neglect to do ta'ud or good, and to share what you have, for such sacrifices is pleasing to Elohim. Right? So this is verse 17. This is what people did not do. Shalom said, I desired it, prefer her before scepters and thrones. Verse 17, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls as those who will give an account. Let them do it with joy and not with groaning, for that will be no advantage to you. But what good is that if you don't have wisdom? Chakmah. What good is all of that when you got jealousy, envy, strife, complaining, rivalries, slander, gossip, false accusation, plots and schemes with your scepters and thrones? What good is that? If you don't have Chakmah wisdom and you're a woman and you say, I want to rule. Rule what? You're going to rule children? You're going to rule a house? You're going to rule what? With no wisdom? You can't even rule your body. You got to have Chakmah to do that. I mean, that's the whole point. Going back to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7 and verse 8. Wisdom 7 and 8. I prefer her before scepters and thrones, and esteem riches, nothing is in comparison of her. So even riches, even money, wisdom, Chakmah, even before money, even before a donation, even before an offering, how they say. Neither compare I to her any precious stone, because all gold in respect to her is as little sand. It's just like dirt. That's why they take it out of the dirt and they put it on the chart. It's just dirt. You know, gold is dirt. Think about it. They swindle you and they took dirt out the ground, gold and silver, and made it in a chart and made you poor with it. How you make somebody poor with dirt and with dirt? Think about it. You go outside to get a handful of dirt right now, and you should be rich. They should be like, man, how much dirt you got? I got a whole handful, and you should be able to throw it in there and be like, I'm rich. But you can't even do that. And it says, and silver shall be counted as clay before her. You should be able to go get you a handful of clay and just take it somewhere and pay for something. But you can't. Think about it. Think about it. I loved her above health and beauty. I'm talking about every single health and beauty cosmetic thing that you could ever take and put in your body. He said any type of herb or any type of thing you can even put in your thought process. He said you gotta want Chakmah before even health and beauty. Before your image and likeness in the mirror. The words, why? Right, this is the book of Proverbs chapter 31. Marshally, Proverbs chapter 31. Proverbs chapter 31 and 1. Proverbs chapter 31 and 1. Proverbs chapter 31 and 1. It says, the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. Why? Because she had wisdom, Chakmah, because she desired it more than health and beauty. She desired it before scepters and thrones. She desired it before riches and gold and silver. Who are you? What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Why? Because the only way you're going to have a child is through marriage. That's why she said, son of my vows. Because you got to make a vow in order to have a child. That rhymes too. Do not give your strength to a woman, to women. Right? Because if you do that, don't give your co-op. He said, don't give your co-op to a nisha, a woman like Adam. Why? Like Shamshun, like Dawid. Because they all did it like Shalom. He said, don't do it. Like Yehuda and Bereshit. Right? Don't do it. Guess what? Your ways to those who destroy Malachim kings, he destroys your leadership. That's what a woman of wisdom will say. But you know the women today won't say that. It'd be like, I rule, I am governed. No, he said, you destroy Malachim. It is not for Malachim, O Lamuel. It is not for kings to drink wine. He said, don't do it. Because you might incline yourself to an adulterous woman. See, this is what a wise woman would say. Lest they drink and forget what has been decreed. You're going to forget everything that's been said. Give strong drink to one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Right? That's why they gave it to Yahusha. Give it to him. Don't you drink it though. Let Yahusha drink that strong drink, that bitter wine. You don't do it. Because he did it for you. That's what a wise woman, these are wise words. It says, and remember the misery no more. Why do you think Yahusha drunk it? He was in misery. He was so miserable. He said, I ain't going to remember this no more. I don't remember your sin no more. That's how Yahuwah got rid of your sin. He said, I don't even remember your sin no more because he gave him sour wine. He said, how Yahuwah forgot your sin? By drinking wine. Had he not drunk wine, you wouldn't have no salvation. Think about it. Had there been no rain and snow, there would have been no grapes and none to make wine and sour wine. You wouldn't have no salvation. And salvation wouldn't have sprung up on the third day. 49 days when he was taken out on the third day of the fifth day of the third month. Open your mouth for the mute. Open your mouth for the mute and the rights of all that are destitute. Right, skipping over to verse 16. Actually, verse 10. An excellent Isha, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. She's just like Chakmah, wisdom. That's why we just read, I'm not going to compare her to any precious stones. Why would you compare a woman to a ring you put on your finger? Her finger. He said, why are you comparing that? He said, why are you comparing a virtuous woman, a woman, to a ring you put on your finger? He said, that ain't got nothing to do with anything. What's she saying out of her mouth? That's the whole point. That's what makes a Kyle woman. What you saying out of your mouth? You could put a $2 million diamond ring on her finger, and then everything come out of her mouth ain't got nothing to do with no Torah, no nut. And now you broke. Now you want to kill her, right? Now you want to go on YouTube and Instagram and complain, and Twitter, X, and post about it. Well, you should have never did it. You should have actually had somebody tell you some wisdom. Now, this is the part that people don't want to talk about. But here we go. The heart of her husband trusts in her. He will have no lack of gain, right? He ain't gonna have no lack. He ain't gonna go broke. Because this type woman don't need that. She don't need no $2 million, $500,000 ring, right? She don't need it. Because you know why? You know what happens? She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. You see, this type woman, she said she'll do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Why? Because that's the whole point. She seeks flax and wool and works willingly with her yards, her hands. Because you got to have them, 2 right hands. You got to be able to do it all the time. She is like a ship of the merchant, and she brings her food from afar. This is a Chakmah. This is what wisdom is like. Why do you think Yahusha said, he said, I am the bread which came down from Shaly'shy. Because he the food that came from afar. Why do you think he came from the 7 Shaly'shy? What is this? The 7 shabath, or the 364-day cycle. Going to work called Chdsh. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household. Why do you think Yahusha got up on the 3rd day? Why do you think the women was at the scepter? Because Yahusha already know who we're going to be with and who we're going to betray him. He already knew who was going to do it. He said, I already know people are going to betray me and those who ain't. The ones who ain't going to betray me, they're going to be right there at the scepter early in the morning so I could go tell them to go tell my disciples. I already knew who you were before you was even born. I already knew what you were going to do. He said, I like you, you, and you. You. The lying woman at the well, no. Because she a liar, right? I like that woman, that one, the ones that repent. The one that's at my feet, the one that's actually kissing me with her feet, and you ain't did nothing. Now, I like those type women. I like the one that's sitting at my feet. Martha, you don't. Notice how Martha wasn't there. Right? She was too tired because she was serving all day. No, serious. People think, all right, people have no idea. She rises while it's yet night and provides food for her household and the portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hand, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong, right? She ain't weak. I can't lift this thing. No, she ain't weak. She perceives that her merchandise is good, profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. That's why they get up. That's why they got up early and went to the scepter. That's why Yahusha picked them. He could see who they were before they was even born. She puts her hand to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. This is why Yitzhak married Rebekah. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hand to the needy. Right? She is not afraid of the snow in her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes her bed covering for herself. Her husband is known in the gates. When he sits among the elders, she makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchants. What's this? Verse 26. Going to verse 26. She opens her mouth with wisdom. This is how you know. This is how you know. She opens her mouth with Chakmah, wisdom, and teaches, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue, in her language, in her lashon. That's what she teaches, and Chakmah is on her tongue. And that's the whole point. Going back to the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, and verse 7. Wherefore I prayed, and understanding was given to me, and I called upon Elohim, and the ruach of wisdom came to me. I prefer her before scepters and thrones, esteem riches, and nothing is in comparison to her. What happened? Neither compared I her any precious stone, because all gold in respect to her is as little sand, and silver is counted before her as clay before her. I loved her before above health and beauty, and chose to have her instead of light. For the light that cometh from her never goeth out. Now you see why the lamp don't go out by night. We just read that. He said, man, the thing don't ever go out at night. He said, it's on. Right? It don't never go out at night. Right? All good things came to me with her, and the innumerable riches is in her yard, in her hands. Why? She ain't trying to make you not have no lack of gain. These are all a part of it. And I rejoice in them all, because Chakmah goeth before them. That's why out of her mouth comes wisdom, and kindness is in her tongue. And I knew that not that she was the mother of them. That's why he said, this is the mother I taught. This is the mother. This is something his mother taught a Malakim. She the mother of them. Who you think was mother was? Who you think was the mother of Shaly'shy Proverbs chapter 31? King Lemuel's mother. She the one taught it to him. She was the mother of that whole verse, that teaching. She was. Zakar Nakubah, male and female. And guess what? Verse 13, I learned diligently and do communicate her liberally. I do not hide her riches. He said, I ain't going to hide a woman like that. He said, I'm not going to hide her riches. And guess what? For she is a treasure unto men and never falleth. Why? Because the wisdom come out of her mouth. She got a wise tongue. So when she has a wise tongue, she would be like the person who came to the thing, when he Bakar was blowing the Turah, and he said his head to be outside by her wisdom. Because she understood we can't have all this strife going on, all this noise. That's the whole point. For she is a treasure unto men and never faileth, which they that use become the friends of Elohim. Now you see why. When you have wisdom and kindness in your tongue, then guess what? The husband becomes a friend of Elohim. Why? Because of what she's saying. And guess what? Being commended by the gifts that come from learning. That's all it's about. Gifts come from learning. The gift of the Ruach comes from learning. It comes from obedience. He gives the Ruach to those who obey him. Yahuwah has granted me to speak as I would. He said he granted you to speak as you would, and to conceive as is meet for things that are given to me, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom and directeth the wise. So what do you think? Why do you think all this stuff happening? Right, this is the Aramaic Targums. I don't even got this. Aramaic Targums, this is the Aramaic Targums, Jonathan. This is the Aramaic Targums, Jonathan. The Aramaic Targums, Jonathan, chapter 2, chapter 2 and verse 6. Chapter 2 and verse 6. But a cloud of kabod came down from beneath the throne of kabod. What's in the cloud? Rain and snow? It's rain, just like we read in Yeshayahu chapter 45. Let righteousness and salvation spring up. And guess what? And was filled with water from the ocean. Went up again from the earth and sent rain down and watered the whole surface of the ground. And Yahuwah Elohim created Adam with two inclinations. This very same thing we read in Yeshayahu 45. He created him from the Adamah, from the blood. We just read that in here. He was compacted with blood and the seed of man. And guess what? And he took him from the dust of the sanctuary and from the four winds of the world and a mixture of the waters of the world, and created him red, black, and white. And he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the breath became in the body of Adam a ruach capable of speech. Who directed and leadeth the wise? We just read that. Who gives and allows these things to be conceived inside of you? Capable of speech, to give light to the eyes and give hearing to the ears. Right? All that took place. Wisdom of Solomon 17:15. Yahuwah hath granted me to speak as I would and conceive as is meet for things that are given to me. Because it is he that leadeth unto Chakmah, wisdom, and directeth the wise. Verse 16. For in his hand are both we and our words. So when a woman speaks with wisdom, just like Proverbs chapter 31 says, who you think is directing those words? All wisdom also and knowledge and workmanship. The wisdom and kindness in her tongue, who you think is making those words come out? Yahuwah on the inside of you. But when the other words come out, who you think is directing those words? The gates of Sheol, the gates of hell is open on the inside of you. And you're going to need to close it back up, just like Cobb said, the gates of Sheol won't prevail. And the wisdom and kindness needs to prevail again. Verse 17, for he hath given me certain knowledge of things that are, namely to know how the world was made. We know that. Right? If you don't know that, then you need to go back to the beginning. You know how people say, I don't know that. I say, you need to find out what happened. How the world began and the operation of the elements. See, this is what you're trying to gain the understanding of. Be not hamada'a, the operation of what? The elements. How rain and snow, how plants sprout, how gold and silver is made, how all things are coming to be by a speaking ruach, right? The beginning, it said the beginning, ending, and midst of times, right? We on the 7 celestial circles, 354 days of the yard, 364 days from the sun, the beginning of it and the ending of it each month, and then the midst of times, right? Just like Qahalath chapter 3 says, we're learning all these things. And the alterations of the turning of the sun on the 7 celestial circles, according to 182 thrones to the longest night and the longest day, the turning of the sun, the 7 celestial circles that make grass to sprout, that make the birds chirp, that make all these things come to life. All these things. And the changing of the seasons. You have to understand this. The circuits of years, how you going to count 7 times 7, 49 years to the Jubilee? 49 years, right? You talk about a Jubilee, right? 7 times 7, right? How you going to get that? Every 7 years is a Jubilee. How you going to get that? How you going to get that? And the position of the stars. How you going to know the Kukah? How you going to know when the stars and the Shama'ims, when the planets align, when the Mars star appeared, when Mordecai was being worshipped, right? Mordecai, they call him little man, little star, right? The red man, red star. All this is all part of this understanding. And the position of the stars. The natures of living creatures, right? The oath, the behemoth, the remiz, and the bagad, and the tahanim, and the whales, and all these things. All these things have to be understood. And guess what? And the furies of wild beasts and the violence of winds, because you know when the windstorms happen, at the transitions, when you get close to the transitions, the weather gets erratic. The very same thing when you get to the summertime, they get more advanced. Why? Because of the shamash, because of the turning of the sun, because of the heating of the waters. The storms get more erratic. These are all a part of it. And guess what? And the reasoning of men. How do you know that? Men and women. Why? Because plants sprout in the harvest time and the what? The springtime. And these thoughts start to rise back up. And you know how it gets prevalent in the summertime. You know, when the sun, we getting close to the longest day. He said, man, it's going to be real crazy, right? It's going to be on, right? It's not, people get, a lot of things get happening, right? Everything start happening around that time, right? You only, what, like 20-something days away, right? It's on, right? It's on, right? And the reasoning of men, it says, and diversity of plants, right? You understanding the plants, what type of plants grow during certain times. What have foliage? What does not have foliage? What plants spring up, right? Like the everlasting flower, like the lavender flowers, the month of flowers. All these are part of it. Diversities of plants, just like it was. You have to understand this. And the virtues of roots, right? Roots, right? That's why people eat dandelion root. People eat burdock root. Why? Because people eat the, what's the thing that Michigan eat? Yucca, right? That's all root plants, right? They grow in certain temperatures and heat, right? All that's all part of it. And all such as either secret or manifest, them I know. See, these are all apart, even secret roots. You know, roots, that's how you understand where root problems come from and root teachings. You have to understand wisdom on that level. Where does that root come from? How do I root it out of me? How deep do I have to go? It's just like a root canal. How deep do I have to go? It's all a part of it because it all grows in you. You have to understand it. And guess what? Where we at? Yeah. Verse 21. And all such things are either secret or manifest, them I know. For wisdom, Chakmah, which is the worker of all things, taught me. So how you think you get it? It taught me. So we talked about teachings of Shaitan and the teachings of Yahuwah. So we just read, so what do you think is the teachings of Yahuwah? It's not that difficult. That's just a summary of all the stuff you gotta know and understand it. That's the teachings of Yahuwah. So what's the other stuff? Teachings of Satan, Shaitan. It's not that difficult. For in her is an understanding Ruach Qahalath. Uh-oh. Isn't that what people want? He said, I want the Ruach Qahalath. One only, manifold, subtle, lively, clear, undefiled, plain, not subject to hurt, loving the things that is good, quick, which cannot be lettered, ready to do good. That's how you, this is the Ruach Qahalath. Kind to man, let me just read that in mostly Proverbs 31. Kind to man, her husband does safely trust in her, and kindness and wisdom is on her tongue. So what type of wisdom? What she do? Plant a vineyard? I wonder where all that wisdom came from. That's the Qahalath Ruach. For wisdom is more, it says, kind to man, steadfast, sure, free from care, right? Having all power, overseeing all things. So we talk about having scepters and thrones, but you ain't got no wisdom. You'll Chakmah on your tongue. So you're going to mess up a lot. You're going to mess up a lot. You're going to mess up a lot of people too in your life. You're going to mess up. It says, no, having all power, overseeing all things, and going through all understanding. So this ain't no, you know how people say, I know it. That's it, okay? His understanding is unsearchable. All understanding pure, right, tahor, and most subtle ruachs. Subtle, right? It's very, very, it's not going to let you just do what you want to do. I promise you. It's going to catch you. It's going to catch you. For wisdom is more moving than any motion, right? So it doesn't matter what you do. She passes and goeth through all things by reasons of her pureness. So you gotta stay pure, because a lot of people try to make you impure by their word, by their slander, their gossip, their false accusation, because they got demons. Those demons trying to get you to unlock your gates inside of you, so you can open up the gates of Sheol inside of you. So that's why they say all these things, to try to get you to open up the gates, because they can't close their gates. That's why they can't close their mouth with all that no wisdom in their tongue. That's why they false accusation, false tongue, rumors, slander, gossip, lying. And that's why you got to close the gates. And then they spread it to you, because they know you have wisdom. And that pureness is the only way that Chakmah can dwell. For she is the breath of power of Yahuwah. That's why Yahuwah's name is Yahuwah, because it's male and female. He says Yah joined to the feminine nature. It's a feminine form. For she is the breath and the power of Yahuwah, and pure influence flowing from the kabod of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. Now you see why a lot of women get defiled in the world. Because if you had Chakmah wisdom on the inside, you'd be like, no. You would have a different type of understanding. The Ruach would have been like, oh, no. That is a seed that should not be there. Because King Lemuel says, son of my vows. Right. Because there's a lot of children out here that ain't had no vows made. And those are the children he's trying to say, son of my vows. It's the difference. And guess what? And being but one. Actually, go into, verse 26. For she is the brightness of the everlasting light. What do you think that was in the beginning? He separated order from darkness. An unspotted mirror. You ever had a mirror you try to look through and it's spotted up? You can't see nothing. You be like, it got dirt on it. Of the power of Yahuwah and the image of his goodness. And being one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she maketh all things new. Oh. What you mean? He said, she do what? Going to Yeshayahu chapter 66 and verse 1. Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 1. Actually, no. I think it's 66 and 1. Actually, no. Yeah, we're going to go there, but yeah, going to Revelations, Hazum chapter 21 and verse 5. Yeshayahu 21 and 5. Oh, Revelations, 21 and 5. Revelations 21 and 5. Revelations 21 and 5. It says, and he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. How he gonna do that? By Chakmah, wisdom. That's how you gonna make all things new. How you think you're gonna make all things right in your life? I say, I'm gonna make all things right. How you think you become a new person? You become a new creature, new creation. And he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said, you can write these down. Don't write down Penuel, though. Leave Penuel alone. You can write these down. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Aleph and the two. Because, the Greeks conquered you, so they put the Alpha and Omega. The beginning and the end, to the thirsty, I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. We just read that. Without any cost. Without reward or cost. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his Elohim, and he will be my son. Now you see why. Oh, it's not good for you to, Malachi, give your string. Don't give your string to any Shah. Don't give your string. Matter of fact, don't be drinking no wine either. Matter of fact, who can find one of these women? Yahuwah did. How you think he made all things new? From her mouth come wisdom and what? Kindness. How you think he had all the wisdom, compassion, forgiving sins, transgressions, and iniquity? Because of his feminine nature. Because of the feminine part of himself. That's how it is. That's the only way. What can convince a man to forgive somebody who did something evil? The feminine side. The wisdom. That's the only way. How you think you're going to make all things new? It says, a man will change everything for a woman, right? You know how people say, man, he was just this ruthless person. That's what they say, right? But then he changed. What he changed for? That's the whole point of it. People have no idea, though. And it says, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Aleph and the two, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give him from the spring of water of life without payment. The one who conquers, Revelations 21:7. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his Elohim, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, and the faithless, and the detestable, and as for the murderers, and the sexual immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in a lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Because he said, I'm making all things new. Going back to Wisdom of Shalom 7 and 27. 7 and 27. And being but one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she maketh all things new. And in all ages entering into Qahalath souls. She maketh them friends of Elohim and Nabi'im. She said, you make you friends of Elohim and Nabi'im. Right? For Yahuwah loveth none but him who dwelleth with wisdom. Now you see why he said, write these down. These words are trustworthy and true. He said, you can write them down. All the other words, don't write it down. For she is more beautiful than the sun. Oh. And then what? Than the Shamash. And above all orders of the stars. And guess what? Being compared with the light, she is found before it. He says she is found before it. And guess what? For after this cometh night, but vice shall be the prevail against wisdom. Right? So what is all this about? It said before everything was, right? This is first Malachim, Akkad Malachim, 1 Kings chapter 3, 1 through 15. And Shaly'shy made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Mizraim. And he took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of Dawid until he had finished building his own house. Until he built his own house, right? He had his own house. And you see, these two houses. You got your own house, and then you have what? And the house of Yahuwah and the wall around Jerusalem, right? So you got two houses. Which one are you going to put first? Right? So, and that's a choice. He would say, why? That's a choice. The people were sacrificing in the high places, however, because no house had been yet built for the name of Yahuwah. That's the only reason. And he says, and Shaly'shy loved Yahuwah, walking in the statutes of Dawid, his father. Now you see why the father got to be up above you, the son. He got to walk in the statutes of Dawid, his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. And Shaly'shy used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar. And it says, at Gibeon. He said, at Gibeon. He says, on the altar. At Gibeon, Yahuwah appeared to Shaly'shy in a dream by night. And Elohim said, ask what I shall give you. And Shaly'shy said, you have shown great and steadfast love to your servant Dawid, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness and in righteousness and in the uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love and have given him a son to sit on the throne this day. He said, man, you gave me a son because Dawid had a different, Yahuwah forgave him for the adultery he committed. And then he gave him a son from the very woman that he had to commit adultery with after he killed her husband. Now you think about that. Yahuwah forgave you for adultery and murder. You should die immediately. But for some reason, Yahuwah did not kill him for murder and for adultery. These are all death sentences, right? In Yasharal. And guess what? But guess what child came out of death and adultery? And murder and adultery. Peace. That's what came out of murder and adultery. Shalom came out of murder and adultery. So had David not committed murder and adultery, peace would never have been born. Who can forgive people like that? Oh, you must be a feminine nature, a wisdom that just passes all understanding. Because ain't nobody gonna forgive you for no murder and no adultery. And then allow you to get peace afterwards. Only Yahuwah can do stuff like that. That's how you know it was Yahuwah. Ain't nobody else gonna do that. Right, so this is going back to, going to 3 and 6. And Shaly'shy said, you have shown great steadfast love to your servant Dawid, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. And that's the whole point. Let salvation and righteousness spring up in Yeshayahu 45. I created calamity. You have kept for him a great and steadfast love and have given him a son to sit on the throne this day. And now, Yahuwah my Elohim, you have made your servant king in place of Dawid, my father, although I am but a little child. Now you see why Yahusha said, if you don't humble yourself like a child, ain't no way you're going to get in the Mount Cool. He said, I am nothing but a little child. But I thought he a child and he got a wife from Pharaoh. And he got his own house. You know, if you say, I'm grown. He got his own house, he got a wife, and he say, I'm a child to Yahuwah himself. You know what people say? I'm grown. No, he got a house and a wife, a daughter he married from Pharaoh, another rich merchant, and then he say I'm a child. At the same time, you say you grown. I'm grown. Now you could be mature, but not grown. I do not know how to go out and come in. He said, I don't know this. I said, well, you don't know something, but you get scared. Like, man, I don't want to go out and come in the wrong way. If I do something wrong, and your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people. He said, an understanding mind, that I may discern between good and evil. And now you see why. You got to be able to discern between the longest day and the longest night. You got to be able to discern between the longest day and the longest night on the 7 celestial circles. Because you got the longest day, 182 thrones going toward the longest night, 182 thrones. You got to understand seasons. You got to understand how people think. That's how you get more Chakmah wisdom. Then you won't get entangled in thorns and thistles in the world. That's how you do it. For who is able to govern this, your people? He said, who's able, right? So that word for understanding is Shema. Give your servant, therefore, a Shema. What do you mean, Shema? Why would they put Shema? Give your servant an understanding mind, an understanding lab, or a Shema mind. A hearing mind. A mind that can hear. To listen and obey. A mind that can listen and obey. To hear. Give me that type of mind. Why? So that I can hear and do what you say. To give heed to what you say. To be obedient to what you say that I hear in my mind. To regard. To what? To sound aloud. Even musical instrument, it says here. In musical terms, to proclamation, right? Give me a listening mind. To hear intelligently. He said, give me a mind to hear intelligently. Also means to be in obedience, to discern. Because that's the whole point. To discern. To hear intelligently in my mind. Because if you can't, what happens? He said, give me an understanding lay. Right? Going to verse 10. It pleased Yahuwah that Shaly'shy had asked this. See, so how you think you're going to please Yahuwah? You got to ask. Be like, I'm going to. See, the Father don't like when you do stuff and you don't ask. He said, did you ask me? How you get it? That's the whole point. Because if you don't ask properly, then what happens? Yahuwah's like, hold up. How'd you get it in? You did it some other way, didn't you? I know you did it some other way. I know you didn't ask me. Because if you would have asked me, I assure you, you didn't ask me. I know you didn't. Right? He said, I know you didn't. Right? This is the book of James. James chapter 5. James chapter 1 and verse 5. James, Yaakov chapter 1 verse 5. It's both male and female. If anyone lacks wisdom, he said, you need it. You need all of it. I know you say, I don't like issue. Let him ask Yahuwah, who gives generously to all without reproach. And it will be given to him. What do you mean without reproach? He said, when you ain't got none. But let him ask in Amunah. That's why he said, David, he said, you walked in faithfulness and you walked in completeness. You got to ask in Amunah with no doubting. He said, what do you mean? No doubt. Don't doubt. You got to ask in Amunah. That means you can't have no doubt. You're going to give it to me, no doubt. Right? For the one who doubts is like the wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. And we just read that in the Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7. He said, even the waves of the wind. Remember we just talked about that? the ruach, the ru. Even the paths of the wind, the north wind and the south wind. And guess what? For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from Yahuwah. He is a double-minded man, a two-faced, unstable in all his ways. Why? Because you're double-minded. You can't discern between good and evil. You should be able to discern between you double-minded. Because you don't believe Amunah. You don't have it. You don't believe with Amunah. Right, going back to Wisdom of Solomon, 1 Kings, Malachim chapter 3, going to verse 10. It pleased Yahuwah that Shlomo had asked this, and Yahuwah said to him, because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself a long life, or riches, or the life of your enemies, but I has asked for yourself an understanding to discern what is right. Behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall arise after you. What happened? And I will give you also what you have not asked. This is the whole point. Both riches and honor. That's the whole point. He said, what you ain't asked for. He said, because you ain't asked for that. He said, what you asked for? Riches. Did you ask for riches and honor? No, I asked for wisdom. Chakmah. So that no other king, Malak, shall compare with you all your days. And if you walk in my ways and keep my statutes and my commandments as your father Dawid walked, I will lengthen your days. So that's how you lengthen your days. It's not that hard. And Shlomo awoke. So this was, nobody saw it. Nobody saw it, nobody heard it. Nobody had it cataloged, nobody recorded it. Nobody can do that in the Tardema, in the dream world. They can't do that unless you go to Inception and they try to intercept your messages and implant something else. That's why they make the movie. That's why they be trying to get in your head. Because they know in your Tardema is where all the secrets lie. So they trying to get in your thought process. That's why they will give you another dream world to focus on. And then you have dreams about that. Riches and honor and health and beauty and all these things. They gave you the riches, they gave you the world and the things in it. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings and made a feast for all his servants. He said he did all that, but that's all a part of it. Right, so that word for understanding in that verse is bane. Or bin, or bean. Bean. Baith Yad Nun. Bean. He said, but have asked yourself for an understanding to discern what is right. And that word for discerning is the same word. A being mind. Why? Because he said, I want a mind to discern between good and evil. So they put that word being in the middle of it. Benin, right? But also, it means what? To discern, to understand, consider between good and evil. In your mind, with a shema, with a hearing mind, to discern between good and evil. To perceive, to understand, to know, to observe, to give heed, to distinguish, to have discernment, insight, understanding, intelligent, to separate. Right? We talk about separating mentally, right? To understand, to distinguish, eloquent, right? Cunning, right? But that's all a part of it. To consider diligently, to teach, you got to have a hearing mind to being what? Right, this Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1, 3 through 5. And Elohim said, let there be light, or, and there was or. And Elohim saw the light, and it was ta'u, good, and Elohim badal, or separated the light from the kashak, the or from kashak. And Elohim called the day, the light, Yom, and the darkness he called Layla. And there was evening and morning the first day. Why? But that word for bane right here in verse 4. And it says, Wu yirah Elohim ath haor ki ta'u. It was good. Wu badal Elohim bane. They put beneath but bane right there. He between haor light and between that same word bane hashkashak darkness. Oh, that's a part of it. So he needed a hearing mind, an understanding intelligent mind to hear and distinguish between good and evil, and intellectually teach after he is able to distinguish between good and evil in his mind. Because if he couldn't, his mind would be erratic. Because he knew, I can't make a mistake. Because all these are a part of all this understanding. But it takes wisdom to do that, right? It's Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, 6, 12 through 25. Wisdom is glorious and never fadeth away. Yea, she is easily seen of those who love her, and found of all who seek her. She preventeth them that desire her, and maketh herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his doors. He said, you're going to find her sitting right at your door of your mind. She's right at the door of your mind. To think there upon her is perfection of wisdom. So in order to perfect anything, Chakmah, you have to think on it. And whoso watches her shall quickly be without care. You ain't gonna care about nothing. It's gonna be so different. It's a different type of understanding. That's why you think he said the woman would do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Because he ain't got to care about that. I'm not gonna be caring about if she's really gonna be good and evil. I already know she's gonna do me good all the days of my life. I ain't got to think about it. I'm without care. Everything's taken care of. I don't have to think about anything because she's already done it. For she goes about seeking such as are worthy of her, shows herself favorably unto them in the ways, and meeteth them in every thought, in every single conscious thought you have. For the very true beginning of her is the desire of discipline, and the care of discipline is love. That's the whole point. Why do you think you got to do first month all the way through the 16th day of the first month? Then you got to go even longer than that, even the 25th day. Then you got to go to the second month, all the way to the 49 days when Yahushua was taken, even all the way up until this day. It's all just discipline. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's discipline and love. And the love is the keeping of her laws. And giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. This is why you get immortality. This incorruptible must put on incorruptible, and this mortal must put on immortality. And incorruption maketh us near unto Yahuwah. That's the whole point of this. You get closer to him. That's how you get there. Therefore, the desire of wisdom, Chakmah, bringeth to the kingdom of Ma'akuth of Yahuwah, right? That's the whole point. That's the whole point, how you get there. If your delight be then in thrones and scepters, O kings, Malakim of people, right? That's exactly what King Lemuel said, right? But what did his wise mother say? Honor Chakmah. He said, honor my words, my son. That ye may reign forevermore. He said, don't give your strength to women in debt that destroy Malakim. Why do you think she said that? As for Chakmah, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you, and will not hide the mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity. How did Yahuwah make everything you see? I make all things new. I'm going to make everything new. And bringeth the knowledge of her into light. Why? Because her teaching is light. It gives birth. It gives birth to things, right? And will not pass over the truth. Neither will I go with consuming envy. He said, when you got consuming envy and jealousy for somebody else, he said, wisdom ain't with you. It's going to consume you. It's going to consume you within. And guess what? For such a man or woman shall not have fellowship with wisdom. When you got consuming envy and jealousy, if you're a jealous woman, jealous of another woman, he said, you ain't got no wisdom on the inside of you. If a whore is jealous of a virtuous woman, you ain't got no wisdom on the inside. That whore ain't got no wisdom hucking on the inside of her. Because you said, I need to learn something. That's why you need to watch her. That's why you don't need to be jealous and envious of no Kaya woman, no virtuous woman. Why? Because you need to learn something. Whore, zina. That's the whole point. Or you'll never dwell with Chakmah. You'll never learn anything. And guess what? But the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world. That's how you know that a virtue, when a woman transforms into this, that's how you know you're the wealth of the world, not the world you see today. You're the welfare of the world. When you now transform yourself, go from wisdom to kindness to now you're the welfare. You're going to help people. And a wise malak is the upholding of his people. And now you got a king too with wisdom, and now you have all this now being permeated into the world as a healing medicine. Receive therefore instructions through my words, and it shall do you good. That's the whole point. It's going to do you good. Why? Because the words that I'm giving, he said, ain't going to be, I'm not trying to do you evil. It ain't going to do you evil. You do that, it's going to do you good. It'd be the most wisest thing you receive. This is the wisdom Chakmah, same thing, chapter 3, verse 9 through 15. They that put their trust in Yahuwah shall understand the truth. And such be faithful in love shall abide in him. For kind and mercy is to his Chdshim, and he hath care for his elect. But the unrighteous shall be punished according to their own imaginations, which have neglected the righteous and forsaken Yahuwah. That's what happens. You forsaken the welfare of the world, and you forsook Yahuwah. You fell away. You fell away. For whoso despiseth Chakmah and nurture, you despise wisdom, or why do you think Yahushua was despised and rejected by men? A man acquainted with grief, a man of sorrows. He is miserable. You know what you're going to have to do to get rid of your misery? Why do you think Yahushua drunk the wine for you? So he'll no longer remember his misery no more. Because had he not drunk that wine, you would be miserable and you wouldn't understand anything about him in the Torah. And their hope is vain. You will have no hope. Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. You might be like, man, Bump King, let me all say, I'm going to drink me a whole bunch of strong drink. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do everything she said opposite. Your hope would be in vain. If Yahushua didn't drink that, what do you think will happen? You'll be in vain. Everything you know, just be like, whatever. Their labor is unfruitful. Everything you're doing is just be worthless. What's the point of doing it? And their works unprofitable. What's the point of keep doing it if Yahushua ain't raised? We all men most miserable. We just, men and women, we just miserable. Why? We just be drinking till our misery till we die. Their wives are foolish and their children wicked. He said, you won't have nothing to teach them. And your children going to be wicked. That's what you see today. Because their hope is vain. Their labor is unfruitful and everything they do is unprofitable. Why? And guess what? Their offspring is cursed. How do you think we got cursed? Why do you think the iniquity of the fathers fall upon the children? Why do you still think you're being cursed today? Because your father despised wisdom and nurture. So therefore, you cursed. And they still commit sin, even now. And he said, why are you still committing sin for? You're bringing more curses on everybody, right? And you be like, yeah, it's all good. Mother committing sin. You be like, it's all good. Okay. He be like, man, why not work out for me? He's like, they still won't stop committing sin. That's why he sent his Nabi. He be like, I don't care who they are, their faces, it doesn't matter. Everybody repent. So good can come to you. You be good, but evil. Their offspring is cursed. Wherefore, Barak is the barren that is undefiled. He said, Barak is the one who ain't got no child. who undefiled, the virgin, the Bethula, which have not known a sinful bed. He's like, who had no children. He said, son of my vows. Right? There's a difference between, I ain't create no child out of adultery. She shall have fruit in the visitation of souls. You say, you're going to have some fruit with wisdom. If you have wisdom on your tongue and kindness, you're going to have fruit in the visitation of souls. Because the hour of temptation coming. And Barak is the eunuch. Which with his hands have wrought no iniquity. There we go. His yard. The eunuch. Why do you think that's the male who abstains from intercourse? Why do you think you do it all the way from the first day to 16th day, or some to the 25th day, and then you go into the second month? You do it all the way through. Why do you think you do all that? He said, ain't a lot going on. He's like, nope. Nor imagine wicked things against Yahuwah. For unto him shall be given a special gift of a faith, Amunah, and an inheritance in the temple of Yahuwah, more acceptable to his mind. That's what happens when you do all of that. What do you think? What do you think when you abstain, when you in the present, you stop doing things, and Yahuwah says, you know what? You're like a woman who has not known a sinful bed. You're like a eunuch in my presence. Because you put aside the works of the flesh in order to make me look at you this way. Verse 15, for kabod is the fruit of good labors, and the root of Chakmah shall never fall away. Now you see why people fall away. They become what? Trifling. Right? They become slanderous, scandalized. Right? He said, you'll never fall away. When you have the root of wisdom, he said, you'll never fall away. Ain't no way you could. There's no way you could. Right? Right? Ain't no way you could. Right, so this book of Matthew 26 and 31. Matthew 26 and 31. Matthew 26 and 31. Then Yahushua said to them, you will all fall away because of me this night. Because you know why? They ain't got the root of wisdom on the inside of them. Because if they understood why Yahushua was going, what he was doing, then they would have never fell away and everybody would have left him and walked away from him. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. Because you didn't understand why that had to be fulfilled. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee. Just like Chakmah goes before them. And guess what? Qahalath answered, though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Because you ain't got the root of Chakmah and wisdom on the inside. Because you know in 3 days and 3 nights when you put a seedling in the ground. Just like I'm in the tomb on 3 days and 3 nights, it's going to spring up after the third day. Because you don't understand nature and seasons and how things have to happen and things have to change. Matter of fact, you don't understand how the sun moves. It has to go down first before it comes up. So I have to go 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Sun, it ain't going to be no light for 3 days. For 3 days, there ain't going to be no light. Because you didn't have wisdom. But after I am raised, I will go before you to Galilee. Qahalath answered, though they fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Yahushua said, truly I say to you, this very night, because you ain't got the root of wisdom, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Why? Because you have no idea, this will be 3 days of darkness. You're going to deny me 3 times. Qahalath said to him, even if I must die with you, I will not deny you. And all his disciples said the same. Everybody, that's what people say. People talk. But that's trash talking. You know, like, what you going to do, but you really ain't. You don't have the root of wisdom. They didn't have it. They didn't have that Chakmah on the inside, so therefore they all fell away. That's why Yahushua said so many times, this is Mark chapter 4 and verse 17. This is Mark chapter 4 and verse 17. Now you see why you got to understand all this wisdom, Chakmah, so you won't fall away. Mark chapter 4, verse 17. And they have no root in themselves. We just read about that in Wisdom of Solomon. You understand all roots. We just read that. Then he said that. Understanding all roots. The root source, I'm talking about, they have a root number. And they have no root in themselves, but endure for a while. Then when tribulation and persecution arises on the account of the debar, immediately they fall away, because they don't have a root of Chakmah, wisdom on the inside, because it ain't rooted in them. And guess what? And others are the ones who are among thorns, and they are those who hear the debar, but the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches and the desires of things enter and choke the debar, and it proves unfruitful, because they don't have wisdom on the inside. Because how did Shaly'shy desire it? Before health and beauty, before thrones and scepters, before riches. So therefore, you don't have the Chakmah on the inside, the root of it. You won't be fruitful with wisdom. Just like we read in the Wisdom of Solomon, or Wisdom, Book of Wisdom. You won't be fruitful in your mind. But those who were sown on good soil are the ones who hear the debar and accept it, and bear fruit 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold. He says, so why are you going to do that? Because you need a lamed staff. Right? That's what 30 is in the Alipin. You need a lamed staff. You need a samak. You need a Raj. Or Kuf, But these are all a part of it. These are all a part of it, right? Going back to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, verse 15. For glorious is the fruit of good labors. you be fruitful, not unfruitful. And the root of Chakmah shall never fall away. It ain't never going to fall away, regardless of what people say or do. Right? And that's the whole point of it. This is Jeremiah chapter 38, 1 through 28. We almost finished. Jeremiah chapter 38, 1 through 28. Now, Shaphat and the son of Matan, Gedaliah the son of Pashur, Jukal the son of Shalamah, and Pashur the son of Makai heard the words of Jeremiah was saying to all the people. Thus says Yahuwah, he who stays in the city shall die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. But he who goes out to the Chaldeans shall live. He said, so you're going to die in this city by famine, pestilence, and sword. So why would you stay there? But he said, if you go out to the Chaldeans, you shall live. Why would he say that? He says, and he shall have his life as a prize of war and live. He said, man, you're going to have your life as a prize of war and you're going to live, because they're going to take you captive, but it's going to be for the price of war, and you're going to live, though. Right? This is the book of Yochanan, chapter 18. Yochanan, chapter 18. Yochanan chapter 18 and verse 1. Yochanan chapter 18 and verse 1. You're going to see this real clear. And when Yahushua had spoke these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kudrum. What you mean the Nakala Kudrum? What you mean the place of the dark waters? Where you supposed to throw all your stuff in there. Well, from the first day to the 16th day. Even they did it again in the second month. All the way to this time. Why do you think he going by the brook Kudrum? I'm trying to tell you where to throw your trash at. He says, so why we did all that? I'm just showing you. This is where you throw your trash at. Oh, that's why we went by the brook Kudrum. He be like, yeah, throw your things that make you fall away in the brook Kudrum, because you ain't got the root of wisdom inside of you. And it says, where there was a garden. Man, there was a garden right next to the brook Kudrum. Y'all don't even know. When they were throwing all them priests were throwing that, there's a garden, there's a gun right next to it. And guess what? Which his disciples entered. He and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place. He knew the place too. Yehuda knew where the brook Kudrum was. He knew where the brook Kudrum was, And he knew where the garden was, where they go all the time. Because you got to always throw your stuff in there. You got to put your stuff in the dark waters. Because these are the last dark waters, too. He knew about the priesthood, too. He knew where they threw all this stuff at. He knew what Yahusha told him to do on the first day, always his 16th day. But he ain't get rid of everything. Because he desired riches more than wisdom. And they all fell away, remember? He said, Shalom said, I desired it more than riches, and health and beauty, and scepters and thrones. See, Judas didn't desire them more than, he didn't desire wisdom more than the high Kahan and the priest and the seat, and getting some favor with some hypocrites. And it says, he betrayed him, also knew the place. For Yahusha often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers, and some officer and the chief priests and the Pharisees went there with lanterns and torches and weapons, right? So why he did that? They came there with weapons. Why? Because you know why? Because you start telling people to do stuff like this, and then you get mad, upset. Then Yahusha, knowing all that would happen to him, too, all the high Kahan and the priests should have been there to throw all this stuff in the brook Kudrum. Matter of fact, all the priests should have been there, the Kohanim, but they weren't there. They were plotting against Yahusha the whole time instead of doing what they're supposed to do according to Torah, according to the first month. And then they didn't do it in the second month. And then you want to come at Yahusha Mashiach and start speaking against Yahuwah and start saying what you ain't going to do. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and officers, some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees went there with lances and torches and weapons, and Yahusha, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to him, whom do you seek? They answered him, Yahusha of Nazareth. Yahusha said, I told you, I'm he. And Yehuda, who betrayed him, were standing with him. When Yahusha said, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. Because all nations are going to fall to the ground. And we read in the first thing we read in Ezekiel, Nicasia. He said, all y'all going to hit the ground. They're going to prostrate to me. And guess what? So he asked them again, whom do you seek? And they answered, Yahusha of Nazareth. And Yahusha answered, I told you I am he. So if you seek me, let these go. So what happened to that? He said, let them go. Go on to verse 12. So the band and soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Yahudim arrested Yahusha and bound him. And first led him to Ananias, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was a high Kahan that year. Right, going back to Jeremiah chapter 38. Jeremiah chapter 38 and verse 2. Thus says Yahuwah, he who stays in this city shall die by the sword and by famine and by pestilence. But he who goes out to the Chaldeans shall live. He shall have his life for a prize of war and live. Why do you think Yahusha was taken? That was a prize of war. Why do you think they came and grabbed him out of the garden, and they took him to the high Kahan? Because he was a prize. He was like the prize of war. And guess what? And he was going. And guess what? And everybody, he said, let the others go that they may live. But he said that he that stayed in the city was going to do what? They were going to die by pestilence, by famine, and by sword. Where were they at? They were near the brook Kudrum, in the garden. They weren't in, where were they at? They were in the city? No. And then they came and got him for a prize of war. But it said but he who goes out to the Chaldeans shall live. Why do you think Yahusha went out with Judas and he let him arrest him? It says, he shall have his life for a prize of war and live. Why do you think Yahusha got him on the third day? They thought they captured him. Right? He was a prize of war, but he going to live. Verse 3 says, thus says Yahuwah, the city shall be given into the hand of the army of the king of Babylon and be taken. He says, so why he said all that? And guess what it also says? Then the official said to the king, let this man be put to death. He said, why he said all that? Right, so this is the book of Yuchanan, He said, man, let this man be put to death for saying that stuff, right? This is the book of Luke 23 and 27. Luke 23 and 27. Luke 23:27. And there followed him a great multitude of people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. They were crying. Why he said that? But turning to them, Yahushua said, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. He said, man, weep for yourselves and your children. Why? For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Barak is the barren and the wombs that have not bore and the breast that never nursed. He said, man, nobody, a woman that never known a sinful bed. And a eunuch also. Why do you think you had to abstain from certain things during this time? Because it would have been sin for you to do it. Barak is the woman who don't know a sinful bed. And the eunuch. You know, the virgin man who followed Yahushua everywhere he went. Why do you think he said that? People say, why he said that in the first month? Because people didn't understand it. Because had you understand it, you would have did it. You can't do it. Because it would have been sin to do it. You like the Malachim. There'd be no marrying Girian marriage when you appear before Yahuwah. He's like, nah, we're not doing that right now. And it says, Barak is the barren and the wombs that never bore and breasts that never nursed. You know why they didn't understand it? Because they didn't have no wisdom, no Chakmah. You know, he already went by the Brook Kudrun already. So he already fulfilled that. You just ain't know it, though. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and the hills cover us. Now he's saying, now you want to hide like Adam. Now you see why people going to hide like Adam now. Because you ain't do what he said. And people say, I want to continue and not do it. Okay. For if they do these things when the wood is green, he say, man, everything green. It's rain and snow, everything coming down. What will happen when it is dry, when there ain't no rain and snow? They're going to kill you too. They're going to kill you when it's springtime, and they're going to kill you when there ain't no rain. It's a famine. Because we just read it in the book of Jeremiah chapter 38. He said, he that stay in the city shall die by the sword, famine, and pestilence. That is what you call dry. That's what you call a dry place. And people say, why he said that? That's the whole point. All right, going back to Jeremiah chapter 38. Jeremiah chapter 38 in verse 4. Then the official said to the king, let this man be put to death. Why do you think he put Yahushua to death? Because he said some things. He said, this city shall surely be given to the hand of the king of Babylon to be taken. Why do you think Jerusalem was going to be taken? He said, don't wait for me, wait for your tree. He said, they're going to come, they're going to lay your bodies flat to the ground. Ain't what Yahushua said? He would say, what he said that for? People have no idea, right? People have no idea, right? But that's what he meant, right? So this is, yeah, keeping that. Let's stay here. Jeremiah chapter 38 and verse 5. Actually, yeah. Verse 4. Then the official said to the king, let this man be put to death, for he is weakening the hands of the soldiers who are left in this city. Why do you think they all hit the ground when he said, I am he? And the hands of all the people by speaking such words to them. Why? Because, man, you're going to make everybody not believe anymore. You're saying we ain't going to have no riches. We're going to lose our city. You saying that we're going to lose everything. You saying the thing going to collapse. Right? Nobody want to go through that. They like, man, we want to be Barak. And then you say what they say, you put this man to death. They want to kill you for saying stuff like that. For this man is not seeking the welfare of this people, but for their harm. And you ain't trying to make us prosper. That stuff, you trying to mess us up. You trying to mess us up. You talking about he gonna crash everything. He gonna take everything from us. You don't seek the welfare of us. You know why? Because they don't got no wisdom, because they desire riches more than wisdom. They desire scepters and thrones before wisdom. They don't want to lose their scepters and thrones and their riches and their welfare in order to gain wisdom that they may retain their welfare again. They don't want to give it up. So they were saying, put you to death, because you're saying that we gotta lose everything. We gotta go through the Brook Kudrun again. We gotta do it again in the Brook Kudrun in the second month. Yes. Because if you don't do it, that was the whole point of the whole thing. That's why he said when you obey to the bar, there's no way you can be condemned. He said there's no condemnation to those who are in Yahushua Mashiach that follow him everywhere he goes. So when the bar comes, it's like, I did that. Yeah. Oh yeah, we went across the Brook Kudrun. We did all that. Now you can't, right? There's no condemnation. But if you ain't do it, oh, you condemned. He said, oh yeah, you really condemned. People have no idea. That's how it is. That's why I said there's no condemnation to them who are in Yahushua Mashiach. Because you follow him everywhere he go. If you follow him everywhere he go, then guess what? You will be like what you call sinless. That's how it is. That's why I say you practice it, continuing practicing it. You perfecting Kudash in the fear of Yahuwah. That's how it is, perfecting it in the fear of Yahuwah. You're perfecting it. Then next year you perfect it again. Then more and more you perfect it, and then it becomes like there's no condemnation in them Yahushua Mashiach who walk not after the flesh, but after the Ruach. Because the flesh profiteth nothing. The Ruach is life. It is like wisdom. It's like the sun. It's brighter than the sun. It gives life, right? Verse 6. So they took Yirmiyahu and cast him into the... Well, here we go. This looks what they do. Then the official said to the king, let this man be put to death, for he is weakening the hands of the soldiers who are left in the city, and the hands of all the people by speaking such words to them. For this man is not seeking the welfare of the people, but their harm. Then King Zedekiah said, behold, he is in your hands, for the king can do nothing against you. He said, man, you can do whatever you want. He is in your hands. So they took Yirmiyahu and cast him into the cistern of Malachiah, the king's son, which was in the court of the guard, letting Yirmiyahu down by ropes. And there was no water in the cistern. Why do you think Yahushua said our thirst on the cross? You think there was no water inside of that tomb they buried him in? When the women came and they put a stone over it? There wasn't no water in there, but only mud, and Yirmiyahu sank in the mud. Right? He said, man, I was in the mud. He's like, man, he's like, they put me in the mud. Because he said, man, you see you to it, right? Right? He said, so why you did all that? Right? So this is the book of, we almost finished. This is the book of Matthew chapter 27. Matthew chapter 27. Matthew chapter 27 and 20. Matthew chapter 27 and 20. Matthew chapter 27 and 20. Actually, go to 27 and 18. Matthew 27 and 18. Actually, 27 and 15. Now at the feast there was a governor accustomed to release to the crowd any one prisoner who they wanted. And they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Yeah, that's the Yirmiyahu, boy. Barabbas, right? No, he ain't. So when they had gathered the Pilate, they said to them, whom do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Yahushua, who is called Mashiach? For he knew that it was for envy that they had delivered him up. Now you see why wisdom don't dwell with those with consuming envy. That's why they didn't understand it. It couldn't dwell with them. The Chakmah, wisdom, couldn't dwell with them. That's why it says out of her mouth comes wisdom and kindness. That's why it couldn't dwell with them, because they had consuming envy. That's why they had none. That's why people don't have it today. And guess what? For he knew that it was for envy they delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, have nothing to do with this righteous man. For I have suffered because of him today in a dream. Why? Because it's called Chakmah, wisdom. Didn't Shalom have a dream? And Yahuwah appeared to him in a dream? He said, being that you desire this more than health and beauty, more than riches and thrones. That's what she's trying to get her husband to understand. Now the chief Kohanim and the elders persuaded the crowd and asked Barabbas to destroy Yahusha. And the governor said again to them, which one do you want me to release for you? He said it again. And guess what? And they said Barabbas. And Pilate said to them, then what shall I do with Yahusha, who is called Mashiach? They all said, let him be crucified. Man, let that man be put to death, because he don't seek the welfare of the people, and he making all the soldiers' hands weak. Man, let this man be put to death. Isn't that what they saying? And he said, why? What evil have he done? What evil did Yirmiyahu do? Nothing. But guess what? But they shouted the more, let him be crucified, let him be put to death. Now verse 24 says, so when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, because you know why? You ain't going to gain nothing from that. He took water and washed his hands before the crowd. Because Barak is a eunuch who what? Who got clean hands. We just read it, Wisdom of Solomon. Barak is a eunuch who got clean hands. We just read that. I'm going to give you a special type of moon in a place that's going to be well better in your mind. Right? Because he could go to sleep now. He's like, man, I washed my hand. I got clean hands from this, so I can go to sleep. Me and my wife go home. Because I ain't doing nothing wrong. People say, man, people have no idea. That's why he did it. Me and Aydah, she had a dream. She told me, don't have nothing to do with this righteous man. Man, I ain't gonna be like Abraham. I ain't gonna go pray about it. I don't need to go pray about it. Because Abraham had to pray about it when his wife told his son, he like, let me listen to what you just said. I'm gonna wash my hands clean. This thing came from the Tardimah, the dream world. Let me stop playing around with y'all. That's how fast it happened. They can go to sleep at night, knowing they ain't commit no evil against the son of Yahuwah. Uh-oh. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that the riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of the manner of this man's blood. He's like, man, nope, not me. I got clean hands and a pure heart, because I got wisdom. Because my wife brought me some wisdom. Because out of her mouth go wisdom and kindness. Have nothing to do with this just man. Who can find one like that? That's the whole point. Who can find one? And all the people answered, did his blood be on us and on our children? They said that not in wisdom. They just said that. But that's the whole point. That's what happened. And guess what? And then they released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Yahusha, delivered him up to be crucified. Right? And it says, and the guard, Yirmiyahu, we're going back to Jeremiah, we almost 38 and 5. Yirmiyahu 38 and 5. And the king Zedekiah said, behold, he is in your hands, for the king can do nothing against you. Why do you think he washed his hands? So they took Yirmiyahu and cast him into the ropes, and there was no water in the cistern and the mud. Right? It says there was no water in the cistern, but only mud, and Yirmiyahu sank in the mud. Then it says, right, going to verse 7. When Abad Melech, the Ethiopian, a eunuch, it says Saris. That's what a eunuch is. Saris, a eunuch, who was in the king's house, heard that they had put Yirmiyahu into the cistern. The king was sitting in the Benjamin gate. The Ethiopian was, what tribe, whatever tribe, the stranger inherits, whatever tribe, that's his inheritance is at. According to Ezekiel chapter 30, 47, 48. Whatsoever tribe the stranger dwells among, that's where his inheritance is at. I said, Benjamin, he was in Benjamin Gate. And what he do when he was in Benjamin Gate? And what tribe was Shaul from? The tribe of Benjamin in Romans chapter 11. And guess what tribe those people entered into? They were at Benjamin's gate too. And what them people did? And Aydah Melech went from the king's house and said to the king, my master, the king, these men have done evil in all that they did to Yirmiyahu. To what they did to Yahusha. The Nabi, by casting him into the cistern, and he will die there of hunger, for there is no bread left in the city. What do you mean no bread? It was the feast of Chakmah. Then the king commanded Aydah Melech the Ethiopian, take 30 men with you from here and lift Yirmiyahu the Nabi out of the cistern before he dies. People say, what? He say, take 30 of them. There goes some, you get what it said. He said, take 30 men. Why you gotta take 30 men? Man, he must have been real deep down in that cistern. What's going on? Well, he was a giant or something? How big was Yirmiyahu? You need 30 people to get him out? People have no idea. He was a heavy thing. People have no idea, right? So this is the book of Matthew chapter 25. Matthew 25 and 31. Matthew 25 and 31. And when the son of Adam comes in his kabod and all the Malachim with him, then he will sit in his glorious throne. What do you think? Well, glorious. Wisdom is glorious. It's going to be full of Chakmah. Before him he gathered all nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates sheep from the goat, because he going like Shalom. Because Shalom is able to discern between good and evil. He had a hearing mind. He's just like him. That's why it says, all that came before me are thieves and robbers. He says, even this lily, this flower right here is greater than Shalom. Because, we passed the month of flowers, not even knowing. He said, and he will place the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on the right, come, you who are Barak to my father, inherit the Malkuth prepared for you from the foundation of the world. What gate was Ethiopian? In Benjamin gate. He was in Benjamin gate. And what he do? For I was hungry and you gave me food. Huh? He said, man, you got to get this man out of here before he died. Because there ain't no bread in there, ain't no water in there. And guess what? I was thirsty and you gave me drink. And what you do? I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. They threw him in the cistern. He said, you came to me. He said, all of these people have done. The eunuch said, the Ethiopian. I wonder what Philip was telling the Ethiopian when he came and met him before he was getting immersed. He was in Benjamin gate too. Matthew 24, 36. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer, oh, you mean the righteous? So what do you think an Ethiopian is in the Benjamin gate? He righteous. He an Ethiopian in Benjamin's gate because he in the proper place because he believed in 12 tribes in the gate. And he in the right place and he defending the innocent man in Benjamin's gate, which means that he understands the 12 gates of Jerusalem and how he gets salvation. Let's see what happened. Then the righteous will answer him, say, Master, when did we see you hungry? And when did we feed you? Or thirsty and give you drink? Or when did we see you a stranger and welcome you? Or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. Now you see why that Ethiopian right here, that act he did is what you call salvation. And Yahuwah wants you in his malkut when you do things like that. Verse 41. Then he will say to those on the left, depart from me, you cursed. Because you despise. How did children become cursed? Because the parents didn't teach them properly. Because the father despised wisdom and nurture. His wives are foolish, and the children wicked. And they cursed. Because you didn't understand it. And that's the same way. That's why that woman, when the woman came with that wisdom in the dream, he's like, he washed his hands clean like a eunuch. And she was a person who didn't even have a sinful bed. Because she was sleeping alone. She had a vision and a dream, and then he washed his hands like a eunuch. Because wisdom is better than jewels. It's better than scepters and thrones. It's better than riches and honor. It's better than 30 pieces of silver. Verse 41, Matthew 25:41. Then he will say to those on the left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for Satan and his malachim. Now you see why in Revelation he said, you're going to be cast in the lake of fire. All liars, all sexual immoral. Right? All these people are going to be thrown in fire. People have no idea. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not welcome me. And naked and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison and you did not visit me. Then they will answer, Master, when did we see you hungry and thirsty and a stranger or naked and sick in prison and did not minister to you? They will answer them, saying, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous in eternal life. You don't be. Now you see why Benjamin at the Benjamin gate, the Ethiopian, he's like, these people evil, right? You can't say that to me. I'm of the 12 tribes of Benjamin. He's like, y'all evil people of Yehuda. Right, going back to Yirmiyahu 38. Yirmiyahu 38:10. Then the king commanded Aydah Melech, he is servant, the Ethiopian, take 30 men with you from here and lift Yirmiyahu the Nabi out of the cistern before he dies. And Aydah Melech took the men with him and went into the house of the king to a wardrobe in the storehouse and took from there old rags, worn out clothes. He said, worn out clothes, which he let down to Yirmiyahu into the cistern by ropes. They tied them all up. Then Aydah Melech, the Ethiopian, said to Yirmiyahu, put the rags and the clothes between your arms and the ropes. Right? And Yirmiyahu did so, right? He was in the mud, right? He was in the mud. Then they drew Yirmiyahu up with ropes and lifted him out of the cistern, and Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard. They lifted him right out of there. Why? Because they visited him in prison. And they lifted him out. And guess what? And Yirmiyahu will remain in the court of the guard. They brought him right out of there. They took 30 men. What is 30 equal to? 3 plus 0 is 3. Why do you think Yahushua got him on the third day? Why do you think they got him on the third day? They took 30 men. It happened in the first 30 days of the first month. And then King Zedekiah sent for Yirmiyahu the Nabi and received him at the third entrance of the temple of Yahuwah. Right? Why do you think he got up on the third day? People like, that was the third entrance of the temple. Why do you think he got up on the third day? 333. Why do you think he got up? He was 33 years old, as it was supposed, when he was crucified. Why do you think he got up? It was his birthday. He's like, man, what you leaving me down here for? Man, this is the day I was born. So you gonna do this to me? But that's when, but you see, just like you plant a seed in mud, it comes up like a seedling. The very same thing that happened to him out of the cistern. And guess what? And King Zedekiah sent for Yirmiyahu to Nabi and received him at the third entrance of the temple of Yahuwah. Third entrance, right? Because there's all types of, remember, there are gates that go into Jerusalem. And the king said to Yirmiyahu, I asked you a question, hide nothing from me. Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah, if I tell you, will you not surely put me to death? Will you not? Isn't that what he said? Right, so this is the book of, we almost finished. I'm sorry. See, this is the book of Mattheyahu. I think it's Mattheyahu. Right, yeah. So this is the book of Mattheyahu, chapter 26. Mattheyahu, chapter 26, and verse. Mattheyahu, chapter 26, and verse 62. Mattheyahu 26 and 62. Right? And it says, and the Hakahan stood up and said, have you not no answer to make? What is this that these men testify against you? But Yahushua remained silent. And the Hakahan said to him, I adjure you by the living Elohim, tell us if you are the Mashiach, the son of Elohim. Right? Isn't that what he just said? He said, I'm going to ask you a question. Hide nothing from me. Right? And guess what he said? Yahushua said to him, you have said so, but I tell you, from now on, you will see the son of Adam, son of Yahuwah, seated at the right hand of Elohim, right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of Shamayim. Then the Hakahan tore his robe and said, he has uttered blasphemy. What further witness do we need? That's the only reason people question you. They just trying to get you to answer. He said it again. He said it again what he said the first time. He deserves death. Put that person to death. Isn't what Yirmiyahu just said? If I tell you, ain't you going to put me to death anyway? Isn't what he just said? Didn't Yirmiyahu just said that? Then they spit in his face. Had his father not spit in Miriam's face, she would have never been plagued for 7 days. Why do you think he spit in her face? I mean, they were talking. When they spit in your face, I mean, they trying to rebuke him for what he said. They trying to rebuke him for what he said, not even knowing it was absolutely true. We rebuke you in the name of Yahuwah, right? In the name of Yahuwah, right? What do you think name they were using? Yahuwah, like, you trying to rebuke me in my own name, in my son, that he commits sin. Right? You think about that. They trying to rebuke you in the name of Yahuwah. They spitting all of the bar. You ain't nothing but a man. You saying you was in the garden? You was in the garden like Ezekiel, Yekaziel chapter 28, right? So you saying you was in the garden. You saying you were before Abraham was. You saying you gonna come in the cloud. So you saying you Proverbs chapter 8, right? So you think about that. They trying to rebuke him with the Torah. So they using all Torah scriptures now. They ain't like, nah, but you Mashiach, right? And it says, and they slapped him, right? It says, and they slapped him, right? He said he deserves that. Then they spit in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Never you to us, you Mashiach. Who it is that struck you?" Right? Going back to Yirmiyahu chapter 38:14. And King Zedekiah sent for Yirmiyahu to Nabi and received him at the third entrance of the temple of Yahuwah. And the king said to Yirmiyahu, I will ask you a question and hide nothing from me. And Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah, if I tell you, will you not surely put me to death? And if I give you counsel, will you not listen to me? Then the king Zedekiah swore secretly to Yirmiyahu, as Yahuwah lives, who made our souls, right? He starts speaking at the bar, right? Who made our souls? Yahuwah owns all souls, right? Like Ezekiel. I will not put you to death or deliver you into the hand of these men who seek your life. When that happened to Yahushua, did not Yahushua still get put in the hands of those who seek his life? So you think Yirmiyahu said? Right. Going to verse 17. Then Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah, thus says Yahuwah, the Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Yashar, I will surrender to the officials of the king of Babylon. Then your life shall be spared, and this city shall not be burned with fire, and you and your house shall live. But if you do not surrender to the officials of the king of Babylon, Then this city shall be given into the hand of the Chaldeans, and they shall burn it with fire, and you shall not escape from their hand. And King Zedekiah said to Yirmiyahu, I am afraid of the Judeans who have what? Who have deserted to the Chaldeans, lest I be handed over to them, and they deal cruelly with me. Why do you think Yahushua was handed over to the high Kahan and the priests and the elders? Yirmiyahu said, you shall not be given to them. Obey now the voice of Yahuwah in what I say, and it shall be well with you. He's like, man, if you just go into their hands, it's going to be well with you. Why do you think Yahushua went on forwardly? Why do you think he said, whom do you seek? Yahushua Nazareth? Because he had to go. He had to give himself to the hands of the king of to the officials of the king of Babylon, and he had to, go into the hands of the Chaldeans. Why? Because had he not, nothing would have been fulfilled, because the whole Jerusalem had to be burned with fire. Everything had to be burned with fire. Yirmiyahu said, you shall not be given to them, but obey the voice of Yahuwah in what I say to you, and it shall be well with you, and your life will be spared. But if you refuse to surrender, this is the vision which Yahuwah has shown to me. Behold, all the women left in the house of the king of Yehuda were being led out to the officials of the king of Babylon, and were saying, your trusted friends have deceived you. Say what? He said, your trusted friends have deceived you and prevailed against you. That's what the king of Babylon was saying to the women. Your trusted friends have deceived you and prevailed against you. Now that your feet are sunk in the mud, they turn away from you. They ain't going to pull you out of the mud. They know you. He said, now that your feet are in the mud, they ain't coming to rescue you. They're not going to be like the Ethiopian Aydah and say they're evil. They're not going to come rescue you. They're not going to come get you out of the pit. He's talking to the women. That's what the king of Babylon going to say. You see what they did to you, the women? They ain't going to see what happened to y'all. They ain't going to come rescue you like they rescued Yirmiyahu. They're not. They're not going to rescue you out of the mud. When you get stuck in the mud, when you get stuck in the pit, he said they're not going to rescue you out of the mud. That's what the king of Babylon said. That's why you think he got all them captives today. Why do you think the captors, oppressors got them all captives today? He's like, you too weak. Look at the men. We're going to exalt you. They exalted all the women too. And guess what? All your wives and your sons will be led out to the Chaldeans, and you yourself shall not escape from their hand, but shall be seized by the king of Babylon, and the city shall be burned with fire. Then Zedekiah said to Yirmiyahu, let no one know of these words, and you shall not die. What did Yahushua say? Yahushua told him all the words. He let everybody know. And you know what happened? He died. He let everybody in Jerusalem know. And he died. If the officials hear that I have spoken with you and come to you and say to you, tell us what you said to the king and what the king said to you, hide nothing from us, and we will not put you to death. Hide it not from me. If I do say it, you're going to still put me to death. That's why I think Yahushua said, what did he say? This is utter blasphemy, and they still put him to death. Because they're liars. Then you shall say to them, I made a humble plea to the king that he will not send me back to the house of Jonathan and to die there. Then all the officials came to Yirmiyahu and asked him, and he answered them as the king had instructed him. So they stopped speaking with him, for the conversation had not been overheard. And Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard until the day Jerusalem was taken. Right. That's all a part of it. He said, why we did all that? Because everything that happened for a reason, right? This is the last couple of things we've done. This is Yukonon chapter 19 and verse 25. Yukonon chapter 19 and 23. Yukonon chapter 19, 23. And when the soldiers had crucified Yahusha, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts. Right? Because you gotta divide it in 4 parts. But it says, one part of each soldier, also his tunic. But the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. So they said to one another, let us tear it and cast lots for it and see whose it shall be. This is to fulfill the scripture. They divided my garments among them, and they clothed me and cast lots. Right, skipping over. So the soldiers did these things, but standing by the cross of Yahusha were his mother and his mother's sister, and Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Yahusha saw his mother and the disciples whom he loved nearby, he said to his mother, what? Woman, behold your son. He said, woman, behold your son. And he said to the disciples, behold your mother. And what else? And from that hour, the disciples took her to his own home. Why did they do that? He said, so why did they do that? Going back to Jeremiah 38 and 15. But if you refuse to surrender, this is the vision which Yahuwah has shown to me. Behold, all the women left in the house of the king of Yehuda were being led out to the officials of the king of Babylon, and were saying, your trusted friends have deceived you. Why do you think Yahushua was surrendered? Why do you think he surrendered to them? So that the chief priests and the scribes and the kings and the rulers would not say to the woman, that trusted friend that you had, Yahushua Mashiach, that friend that sticks closer than a brother, he deceived you and prevailed against you, because he did prevail, because death is swallowed up in victory. He prevailed against you. Now your feet are sunk in the mud. He said, your feet sunk in the mud, because if he ain't surrendered, your feet sunk in the mud. Now, think about it. If he ain't surrendered, we will all be most miserable, dead. He said, your feet is sunk in the mud, you woman. And guess what? And they turn away from you, because if Yahusha ain't died, nobody would have a reason to say, when did we see you sick? When did we see you in prison, stuck in the mud in the cistern? When did we see something happening to you and hungry and sick? When did we visit you? You done it to the least of them, my brothers and sisters. You done it to me. Had Yahusha not done all those things and fulfilled it, nobody would be afraid of judgment. And you would just lead the women right there in the mud. And he said, he deceived you. Yahusha deceived you, and guess what? Nobody gonna get you out the mud now. They see you in there, they ain't gonna never pull you out. They gonna leave you right there. That's the whole point of it. But guess what he said? Behold your mother. Behold your son. Why? These are my mothers and my brothers and my sisters, those that hear the word and do it. Because these are all a part of it. Right, skipping over to verse 28. 19:28. And after this, Yahusha, knowing that all was finished, said to him, Yukonon 19:28, said to fulfill the scripture, I thirst, because there ain't no water in that cistern. Now he gonna die in there, man. You gotta hurry and get him out before he die. A jar full of sour wine stood there. Now you see why in Proverbs 31, he told him, he said, give wine to him that's ready to perish. He remember his misery no more. And guess what? To fulfill the scripture, I thirst, a jar of sour wine stood there. So they put a scourge full of sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. And when Yahusha had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ruach. He said he gave up the ruach. But all that's a part of it. Right? Going to Psalms. This is Psalms chapter 25. Tahalim. Psalms 25 and 1. Psalms Talim 25 and 1. To you, O Yahuwah, I lift up my soul, O my Elohim, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not my enemies exalt over me. Now you see why he surrendered. In Jeremiah 38. You're going to be like, yo, he deceived you. He said he wasn't going to do it. Who going to lift you out of this sunken mud now? Who going to get you out of this pit that you in now? Let not my enemies exalt over you. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. He said, they wait. Who you think? He said, they that you done the least of my brothers, you done it to me. Jeremiah in the pit, and Abad Melech came, Ethiopian came and pulled him out with 30 men. He ain't gonna let them be put to shame on the day of judgment. But the other people, they shall be ashamed who wantonly treacherous. Make me know your ways, O Yahuwah. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the Elohim of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. All day long. Remember your mercy, O Yahuwah, and your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Remember not the sins of my youth or my transgressions. How you going to do that? He had to drink the wine. So you can remember your sin no more. The misery you had to go through. According to your steadfast love, remember me, for the sake of your goodness, O Yahuwah. Good and upright is Yahuwah, therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He instructing you. Why? Because the gift that comes from learning. He leads the humble in what is right. You know what Jeremiah said? Aydahchay told him, said, say to them, I made a humble plea to the king, and he will not send me back to the house of Jonathan to die there. But they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you. He leads the humble in what is right, and teaches the humble in the way. All the paths of Yahuwah are steadfast love and faithfulness. Why do you think Shalom said, you've had so much steadfast love and faithfulness to Dawid. You forgave him from murder and adultery. All the paths of Yahuwah are steadfast love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and his testimony. Bereaved. See, now you see how. I told you got to do it in order to get the pardon, to get the understanding of it. For your name's sake, O Yahuwah, pardon my guilt, for it is great. Who is the man who fears Yahuwah? He will instruct, it says, him he will instruct in the way that he should choose. Now you see why he did it. Choose this day whom you're going to serve. Many are called to do something, but few going to choose to do it. His soul shall abide in well-being. Your nefesh, your soul. And his offspring shall inherit the land. Your children ain't going to be cursed. And guess what? The friendship, your friend betrayed you. You know how it says in Jeremiah 38? Your trusted friend deceived you. If they would have caught you, if you wanted to surrender, if Yahushua didn't surrender, the king of Babylon and them chief priests and them elders and Yehuda and all them people, because they were like Babylon, they would have mocked everybody. He said he was going to rise the third day. Where he at now? They're going to mock. The friendship of Yahuwah is those who fear him. And he makes known to them his covenant, his bereaved. My eyes are ever toward Yahuwah, and he will pluck my feet. Say what? My eyes are ever toward Yahuwah, and he will pluck my feet out of the net. What did they get you, Yahu, out of? Out of the pit of mud. The same way he said to the women, if you wanted to surrender, they wouldn't have got you out of the mud either. They wouldn't even have no regard for you. When do we see you hungry and sick and in prison and all these things? They wouldn't have no regard for you. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distress. Why do you think Jeremiah was in there alone? He was in distress. Troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distress. Consider my afflictions and my trouble and forgive all my sins. Consider how many are my foes and with what violent hatred they hate me. He said, they hate me without a cause. They hate me. They said, it's not really your Torah. They hated me without a cause. They already hated you. They hate you. They hated me before they hated you. Oh, guard my soul, my nefesh, and deliver me. Let me not be put to shame, for I take refuge in you. May integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Redeem Yasharal, O Elohim, out of all his troubles. Right? That's why he said, you redeem not with corruptible things, silver and gold, with your precious blood. And he purchased the strangers by his blood. He redeemed Yasharal, but he purchased the Goyim by his blood, because they are the ones he purchased in his home. Yasharal the ones redeemed, because Ethiopia was by Benjamin's gate. And being by Benjamin's gate, these men were servants, Aydah and Elect, right? These were all servants in the house. This is Rock 3:17 through 23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in a new meekness, and so shalt thou be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself. You got that humble plea. Unless you go into your enemy's house and they're going to kill you. Like your humble plea is, I'm falling to the hands of Yahuwah. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Many are in high places and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the Anu, the meek, those who have wisdom in their heart and their mind, the root of wisdom. If you don't have that, you're going to fall away. You're going to fall away. There's no way in the world. You're going to fall away. For the power of Yahuwah is great and honor with the lowly. He says, honor with the lowly. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men, women, and children understand, right? Or can discern, between good and evil. Can discern, or having hearing mind, Shema, Lave, that have a hearing, intelligent mind to be able to discern and to be able to understand in their mind. So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. We look at the light of life, the true light, the light every man, woman, and child, the speaking Ruach. And give light to the eyes and hearing to the ears that comes to Torah in the way. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man can come to the Ab except through Yahushua Mashiach. So the understanding of him is the only way you can get to Yahushua Mashiach. Because Amunah come by hearing, and hearing by the words of Yahushua Mashiach. For everything that he has done is all the transformations within oneself. To put away the old nature and then put on the new nature, the higher self. The one may ride upon the high places upon the wings of the wind. And he'll see you riding on the high places on the wings of the wind. And he'll feed you with your food, your akla, that understanding, that Amunah, which passes all understanding and all riches and all beauty and health and scepters and thrones. That Chakmah, that wisdom that comes from your thought process, the thoughts and the intelligent mind that precedes and gives understanding to those who are in darkness, that it may be light and ore on the inside. We look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach on this 7th Shabbat, on the 49-day count toward the 50th day. And to understand all things, one has to submit to Yahushua Mashiach and to understanding Yahuwah himself. Right, so this is the last thing. This is the last thing. This is the Essene of peace. The Essenes, 7 folds of peace. The 7 folds of peace. The communions. Right? The communions. Right, so this is where we at. Yeah. So this is page 264. On the first evening after the Shabbat, right, that will come in right now. Say these words: Malach of eternal life, descend upon me and give eternal life to my Ruach. And close your eyes, sons of light, and sleep and contemplate the oneness of all life everywhere. For I tell you truly, in the daylight hours, as our feet are on the ground, and we have no wings which to fly, but our ruachs, our spirits, are not tied to the earth. And with the coming of night, we overcome our attachment to the earth and join with that which is eternal. For the son of Adam is not all that. For the son of Adam is not all that he seems, and only with the eyes of ruach can we see those golden threads which link us with all life everywhere. For the meek shall inherit the earth, the Anu shall inherit the Eras.